Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International.
If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you're probably aware that last year we released a couple compilations of some of the dumbest criminals and crime stories from around the world that we'd covered in 2021. Many of you told us that you got a real kick out of these compilations, so we decided that this year we would try and do these videos quarterly so that we could include as many of these bizarre and entertaining international cases as possible. As hard as it is to believe, we're already near the end of April, so that means that this week we'll be taking a look at January to March of this year. One thing to keep in mind is that these segments have not been edited since they appeared in their respective lists, so references to specific days of the week as well as other small details may no longer apply. If you like this video, be sure to let us know in the comments section below, making sure to include any stories that you think would make good contenders for future Dumbest Criminal compilations. If you're missing regular Crimes of the Week International though, don't worry, we'll be back next week with another video covering all new stories. With that out of the way, let's get to the video.
Authorities in South Australia say that they have arrested and charged a man and woman this week after they allegedly committed a robbery and were caught thanks to CCTV cameras as well as a police ankle monitor. According to reports, the incident took place at around 5:30 p.m. on January 10th at a massage parlor in the Adelaide suburb of Prospect. It began when one of the suspects, a 29-year-old woman, walked into the business and started to ask the employees questions to distract them. At the same time, the second suspect, a 33-year-old man, entered behind her, sneaking into a room where the employees kept their personal belongings. After stealing a phone, some money, and a piece of ID, the 33-year-old managed to slip out of the business unnoticed, where he again met up with his accomplice. While the scheme apparently went undetected by the massage parlor's employees, the same could not be said for the business's security cameras. When staff realized their items were missing and went back to review the footage, they realized the whole robbery had been caught on tape. In a second stroke of luck, the video revealed that one of the culprits, the 33-year-old man, had been foolish enough to commit the crime while wearing a police ankle monitor that tracked his location. With this information in hand, it was easy for police to arrest him and his 29-year-old alleged accomplice. While neither of the suspects' names have been released at the time of this recording, reports state that both have now been charged with serious criminal trespassing. While I'm sure that many of us remember having an item or two confiscated back in our grade school days, I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of these cases didn't result in criminal charges. However, the same can't be said for the case of one Japanese man who recently got himself in trouble during a rather bizarre quest to retrieve his confiscated contraband. According to reports, the incident took place sometime last week at a junior high school in the town of Mikasa on the Japanese island of Hokkaido. The school was closed for winter break, apparently prompting the man to decide it was the perfect time to break in and try to get back the unknown item that had been taken from him by his teacher. The man, along with his girlfriend, managed to get inside one of the school staff rooms. However, it wasn't long before an employee who happened to be on the property heard them talking loudly and called the police. The man and his girlfriend were unaware of this and stayed at the scene trying to find what they were there for until police came in and caught them, placed them under arrest, and charged them with trespassing. While this might seem like a rather harsh punishment for something so silly, it's at this point that we should mention why police didn't see the incident as the playful antics of misguided teenagers. This is because, while the man and woman were students at the school at one time, they had both graduated well over 40 years ago, and were now 63 and 58 years old, respectively. Unfortunately, reports don't mention what the item was that the 63-year-old man had confiscated from him, but we're hoping that it was something pretty good, considering he was apparently still thinking about it more than 4 decades later. It's also unclear why the man believed that the item would still be at the school after all this time, though he apparently did tell police that he was at least hoping to find his old teacher's contact information if the search came up empty. Though a more effective strategy might have been to simply call the school and ask for his stuff back, police noted that the man and his girlfriend were drunk at the time they carried out their plan. If you ask us, they were probably drinking when they thought of the plan in the first place, as well. Authorities in Japan's Osaka prefecture say that they have arrested a 20-year-old post office employee this week after he allegedly illegally disposed of roughly 7,000 pieces of undelivered mail. According to reports, police were alerted to the crime on January 16th, when 20-year-old Yasuyuki Hara was spotted by a resident in Sakai City emptying bags full of mail in a wooded area in the city's Mihara ward. When officers investigated, they found roughly 3,000 pieces of undelivered mail, some of which contained paperwork allowing local residents to get their COVID-19 vaccines. The dumped mail was traced back to Hara's home in Tondabayashi, where police found a staggering 4,000 additional undelivered letters and items. When questioned about what he had done, Hara reportedly told police that he had started taking undelivered items home the previous fall because he couldn't be bothered to deliver them. According to police, he said, quote, "It was tiresome to deliver the mail, so I took them in my car and threw them away." This week, Hara was arrested on suspicion of violating the Japan Postal Act. At the current time, it's unclear what kind of penalty he could be facing.
Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that they're searching for an unknown man this week after he allegedly attempted to steal a helicopter from the hangar of an airport before trying to flee on a tractor. According to local media, the incident began at around 5:50 a.m. on January 21st when the suspect forced his way into a hangar at the Mackay airport using a red tractor. While reports are murky about what happened next, it appears that once inside the hangar, the man tried to steal a helicopter, with some sources stating that the man tried to use the tractor to accomplish the task. At some point, the suspect set off the hangar's emergency alarm, causing him to abandon his mission. He was then captured on CCTV footage as he unsuccessfully tried to ram open a nearby gate with the same red tractor. He eventually gave up and ran away on foot. Police are now asking anyone who might have witnessed the crime or who recognizes the suspect to come forward so they can identify him. They're particularly interested in speaking to the owner of an orange Kia Rio that was parked just outside of the airport at the time.
Police in Ireland say that they are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a 66-year-old man this week after his lifeless body was allegedly brought to a post office by two men who were trying to collect his pension. According to reports, the bizarre situation began on the afternoon of January 21st, when 40-year-old Declan Hagney and his friend Gareth Coakley arrived at the post office on Stapleston Road in the town of Carlow. The two allegedly said that they were there to collect pension money belonging to Hagney's uncle, 66-year-old Peter Doyle, but were turned away because Doyle was not with them. A short time later, witnesses say they observed Hagney and Coakley standing in line outside of the post office a second time, only now they were accompanied by an elderly man. The witnesses would later tell police that the man looked like he might be sick because Hagney and Coakley had propped him up between them, and it appeared that his feet were dragging on the ground. The elderly man was also wearing a sweater that had been pulled up, obscuring his face, as well as a hat on his head. When Hagney and Coakley were allowed into the post office, they identified the man that was with them as Hagney's uncle, Peter Doyle. However, staff immediately noticed that something was wrong and asked Doyle if he was okay. It was at that point that Hagney and Coakley allegedly pretended that Doyle was having a heart attack and laid him down on the floor. When police were called, Hagney and Coakley allegedly fled the scene. When post-mortem analysis was conducted on Doyle's body, authorities found no signs of foul play. However, they did say that they believe that he had died approximately 3 hours before he was taken to the post office. This obviously raised suspicions about Hagney and Coakley's behavior that day, and why they had allegedly tried to collect Doyle's pension twice. For his part, Hagney claims that he had no idea that his uncle was dead, and insists that he and his friend's actions were totally innocent. While no charges have yet been laid against Hagney or Coakley, it seems that many locals in the area aren't buying the men's story. Hagney claims that he has been harassed and called a murderer since the incident happened, and has also been attacked at least once. He was photographed sporting a black eye while acting as one of the pallbearers at his uncle's funeral. Whether this was some knockoff Weekend at Bernie's style plot to steal money, or something else entirely, we unfortunately don't quite know yet. However, the story was bizarre enough that we thought we'd include it on this week's list. At the time of this recording, the incident is still under investigation. Italian police say that they are hoping to catch the suspects behind a botched burglary this week after one of them allegedly left behind a finger at the crime scene. According to reports, the incident took place recently when two unidentified men tried to break into a recycling plant in the city of Milan under the cover of darkness. However, the suspects were forced to abandon their attempt when they were spotted by one of the facility's guards, who activated an alarm. As the men were fleeing the scene, they had to climb over a gate to get to freedom. Though most reports state that the gate was topped with barbed wire, we're guessing it might actually have been razor wire, given what happened next. As one of the suspects was climbing over, he got his finger tangled in the wire, but decided that losing the finger was better than getting caught. The detached digit wasn't found until the next day, when guards at the plant discovered a man suspiciously rummaging through leaves outside the perimeter. It turned out that the would-be thief hadn't left behind just any finger, it was his ring finger, and his wedding band had been lost along with it. When the man rummaging through the leaves was spotted and questioned by guards, he identified himself as a friend of the suspects and said he was looking for the finger with the ring on it. The guards called police, but the man escaped with an accomplice in a nearby car before police could arrive. While police say that they later found the missing finger, it's unclear if they were also able to find the wedding ring. In either case, they hope that by fingerprinting the digit, they will be able to identify and arrest the unknown suspects behind the failed burglary. Authorities in the Brazilian state of Mato Grosso say that they have arrested a 19-year-old woman this week after she was wanted in connection with the grisly murder of a rival gang member. According to reports, the incident began on January 25th, when a 19-year-old man named Gegiano Silva told his family he was going out for a brief trip to sell a mobile phone in the city of Lucas do Rio Verde. Silva said that he wanted to sell the phone to pay off some debts. However, he never returned. A few hours later, witnesses saw someone toss his partial remains into a dumpster from a moving car. Though the rest of Silva's body was recovered the following day and the main culprit behind the killing was arrested, police soon learned there was another chilling component to the case. The teenager's murder had been recorded by his killers, who were rival gang members. Upon further investigation, authorities allegedly discovered the identity of the person behind the camera, a 19-year-old woman named Emanuele Sosa. She could allegedly be heard during the recording telling the killers to murder Silva with a knife. When news of Sosa's disturbing exploits were reported in local media, it earned her the nickname the Little Macabre Princess. As authorities looked for her, she allegedly took to social media to mock the search effort, sarcastically replying to one commenter who asked if she was scared of being arrested, quote, "Look at my concern." She reportedly posted at least one video during this time showing her with a pile of cash. Sosa was arrested on February 2nd in the same city where the murder took place, in the neighborhood of Alvorada. She has since been charged with drug trafficking and aggravated homicide.
Authorities in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg say that they are investigating a former art gallery security guard this week after he was accused of bizarrely vandalizing a Soviet-era painting. According to reports, the incident was first uncovered sometime in December of last year, when a pair of visitors to the Yeltsin Center noticed something strange on a painting when walking through the art gallery. When they stopped to look at the painting called Three Figures, they noticed that the normally faceless characters in the artwork now appeared to have little eyes drawn on with ballpoint pen. Sensing something was wrong, the guests alerted employees at the gallery, who confirmed that the painting had been vandalized. An investigation revealed the alleged culprit. It was one of the security guards working who had ironically been paid to watch over the paintings. Though the guard's name has not yet been released at the time of this recording, representatives from the Yeltsin Center say that he was hired by a private security firm and that he has since been fired. Apparently, it was his first day on the job. While no definitive reason has been given as to why he drew the eyes on the painting, some reports allege that it happened because he was bored, while one of the gallery's curators attributed the bizarre act to, quote, some kind of lapse in sanity. Three Figures was painted in the 1930s by avant-garde artist Anna Leporskaya. It's unclear how much the painting is worth, however, reports state that it was insured for 74.9 million rubles, or roughly $1 million US. It's said that the painting has since been sent away for restoration, which is estimated to cost about $3,300. At the current time, the investigation into the security guard's alleged actions continue. Though if convicted of vandalism, local media says he could be looking at a fine and anywhere from 3 months to a year in prison.
Authorities in the English city of Birmingham say that a 46-year-old man has been sentenced to more than 2 years in prison this week after he was convicted of breaking into the home of an elderly woman and attempting to steal her car, all while extremely intoxicated. According to reports, the incident took place at around 4 a.m. on December 30th of last year, when Anthony Bateman walked up to the home of a 70-year-old woman in the city's Harborne neighborhood and kicked down her front door. Once inside, he stole the woman's car keys, then proceeded to go back outside and try to steal her black Mercedes C-Class. Luckily for the elderly victim, Bateman was far too drunk to finish pulling off his crime, and when police were called to the scene, they found him still sitting inside the vehicle he was trying to steal, seemingly confused about how to get it started. When officers ordered Bateman to get out, his level of drunkenness was immediately apparent to them. Despite being caught red-handed at the crime scene and clearly struggling to get back out of the car, he kept insisting that he didn't know why the police were there and that he hadn't done anything wrong. Thankfully, by this point, Bateman's behavior was more amusing than threatening, and he even told the police officers that he loved them. He was promptly arrested and taken to jail, after which he was charged with burglary and attempted theft of a motor vehicle. Bateman was subsequently convicted of both charges, and on February 3rd, he was sentenced to 2 years and 5 months in prison. According to reports, at the time of Bateman's arrest, he had only been out of jail for a few weeks for a prior offense. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might remember that last week we brought you the story of a 31-year-old Taiwanese man who was arrested after he was caught selling flavored laughing gas over the internet under the amusing brand name The Jesus Balloon Shop. It just so happens that as we were combing through the headlines looking for stories to cover this week, we stumbled across another bit of laughing gas-related crime news out of Taiwan. When we did, we knew that we had to share it with all of you. Authorities in the Taiwanese city of Taoyuan say that they have arrested and charged a local man this week after he was seen inhaling laughing gas behind the wheel of his car. According to reports, at approximately 2:50 p.m. on February 19th, the city's police department received a call from a concerned citizen who said that they had seen a man inhaling something from a balloon while driving his car. The caller was alarmed because the man appeared to be driving erratically and thought that the thing that he was inhaling might have been some sort of drug. When police managed to track down the man, he was still behind the wheel of his white Mercedes, but refused to pull over when ordered. Instead, he led police on a 10-minute-long slow-speed chase, ignoring stop signs and even taking his vehicle up onto the sidewalk. The leisurely pursuit finally came to an end when the man collided with a tree while driving on the sidewalk, allowing police to block his vehicle on its other side. Though the man was still not ready to give up and reversed into one of the police patrol cars in an attempt to escape, officers were able to drag him out of the car and place him under arrest after shattering his driver's side window. A search of the man's vehicle revealed an entire cylinder of laughing gas, as well as a large quantity of balloons. At the time of this recording, the man, identified only by the last name of Lu, remains in police custody and is now facing several charges, including endangering the public. Authorities in the Australian state of Victoria say that a 46-year-old man has been arrested this week after he allegedly stole a vehicle with an 11-month-old boy inside. According to reports, the incident began at approximately 2:10 p.m. on March 1st, when the boy and his mother were driving in the Melbourne suburb of Keysborough. As the mother momentarily stopped her SUV and got out to look at some items that had been left out on the curb by a local homeowner, a shirtless man jumped into her vehicle and drove off. The young boy was still inside. The vehicle theft and abduction quickly triggered a frantic police search, which finally came to an end 3.5 hours later when police received a call from a nearby childcare facility. The facility was in the suburb of Cranbourne, about a 20-minute drive southwest of where the woman's son and white Toyota RAV4 had been taken. Workers at the facility claimed that they were approached by a man later identified as 46-year-old Dean Robertson, who was carrying the missing boy. Robertson allegedly told them that he had found the boy along with a set of keys and purse in an unattended vehicle. However, the child care workers didn't buy Robertson's story and called police after recognizing him from media reports that had been released that day. When officers arrived at the scene, Robertson was apparently still trying to play off the whole incident as if he was just being a good Samaritan and led police to the stolen vehicle. When he did, they arrested him and charged him with kidnapping, theft of a motor vehicle, committing an indictable offense while out on bail, and driving without a license. Though the boy was safely reunited with his grateful mother, the story doesn't end there. According to the most recent reports about the case, Robertson has been quite the nuisance for law enforcement officials since being taken to jail. He apparently already missed his first remote court appearance this week because police have not been able to give him a phone. This is because every time they have given him one so far, he has dialed the country's emergency number, 000, repeatedly asking them for help getting out of jail. At the time of this recording, Robertson remains in police custody. Authorities in London, England, say that a 38-year-old woman has been sentenced to 8 months in prison this week after she was convicted for trying to fake her own death in order to try and get out of several driving offenses. According to reports, the incident began in November of 2020, when police officers in the area of Kilburn, North London, arrested 38-year-old Zoe Bernard for driving carelessly and failing to stop at a stop sign. Though she gave a fake name at the time of her arrest, her true identity was soon discovered by police, along with the fact that she had already been convicted of numerous driving offenses and was actually banned from driving altogether. Bernard was subsequently charged with driving without a license, failing to stop, driving while disqualified, and careless driving. However, shortly after the charges were filed, police began to receive a series of calls from a woman claiming to be Bernard's sister, Shanice. At first, the woman claimed that Zoe Bernard was ill, and then she claimed she was dead, after which police received a notification that an application for a death certificate had been filed online. Of course, when police checked up on Bernard's supposed death, they discovered that no such death had been registered, and that the 38-year-old was in fact alive and well. She had been posing as her sister in an attempt to fake her own death to avoid her impending court case. When the scheme was uncovered, not only was Bernard forced to stand trial for the previous charges against her, she was also slapped with an additional charge for perverting the course of justice. In addition to a 6-month curfew that she received for the driving offenses, this week she was also sentenced to 8 months in prison for the attempt to fake her own death. Authorities in the Thai capital of Bangkok say that a 50-year-old police officer is facing murder charges this week after he accidentally killed one of his colleagues while playing with guns while drunk. According to reports, the incident took place sometime last week when the officer, identified only by the name as Chaiwat, showed up at the Dusit police station to visit some of his fellow officers. Though he was off duty at the time, he had just purchased a couple of new guns and wanted to show them off to his friends at the station. As soon as Chaiwat walked in, his friends could tell that he was drunk and reportedly told him to put the guns away. However, Chaiwat didn't listen and continued to fiddle around with the weapons. He continued doing this until, unsurprisingly, one of the weapons accidentally fired, striking one of the other officers in the chest. Though the man was rushed to the hospital, tragically, he died from his injuries shortly after arriving. Chaiwat was immediately fired from his position as a police officer following the shooting, and at the time of this recording, is now facing murder charges. Authorities in the Thai province of Chonburi say that they have arrested a 37-year-old man this week after he allegedly ran into traffic several times while intoxicated, apparently believing he was protected by a magical flower. According to reports, the situation began early in the evening on March 8th, when police in Chonburi district started to receive calls from concerned motorists who told them that a drunk, shirtless man was running onto busy roadways in front of vehicles. Apparently, the man was observed running, shouting, and dancing, all while drivers desperately tried to avoid hitting him or causing an accident. When police arrived at the scene, they found the 37-year-old suspect just as he had been described, still running out onto the road. When police told him to stop, he refused, leading them on a short chase. He was quickly caught, but reportedly remained uncooperative. Eventually, several officers were forced to physically restrain him and carry him to one of their vehicles. He was subsequently identified as Yutsiri Wangwiset. Before he was taken to the police station, Wangwiset allegedly gave a rather amusing explanation for his actions. He pointed to a pink flower he was wearing on one of his ears, saying that it made him invisible and protected him from harm. He also offered what he apparently thought would be an instant get-out-of-jail-free card, saying, quote, "I was invisible when I was in traffic, nobody actually saw me, so I didn't commit any crimes." Unfortunately for the 37-year-old, the flower, although presumably pleasant to look at, was not imbued with the magical powers he seemed to think it was, and he was subsequently put in jail. He has since been charged with causing a public disturbance, public intoxication, and resisting arrest. Authorities in the South African province of KwaZulu-Natal say that they have arrested an alleged robber this week, who many are now jokingly referring to as the country's sleepiest criminal. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of March 14th, when a man in the town of Phoenix, just northwest of Durban, went to get into his Volkswagen, only to find an unknown man asleep in the passenger seat. Not knowing why the man was there, the vehicle owner contacted the private security company he had hired, who went to investigate while also alerting the police. When authorities arrived at the scene, they found the 35-year-old suspect still asleep inside the vehicle as the owner had described. The tools he had used to break into the car were allegedly just outside, and he was quickly arrested. At the time of this recording, police say that they are still trying to uncover the actual motive behind the bizarre incident. They believe that the suspect might have broken into the car with the intention of stealing it, but then given up after realizing he couldn't start it and becoming too tired. It's also been alleged that perhaps the thief simply decided to make himself comfortable after breaking in to steal items from the car, only to find nothing of value inside. Though the suspect's true intentions may never be known, it hasn't stopped many on social media from chiming in with their own jokes and theories. Several people jokingly asked if they could get some of the drugs that the suspect was on, while one Twitter user remarked, "Even criminals don't respect their jobs nowadays. We're doomed as a country." According to reports, the suspect, whose name has not been released, has now been charged with attempted theft of a motor vehicle and possession of car-breaking implements. Authorities in the Japanese city of Osaka announced that they had arrested a 22-year-old firefighter this week after he was accused of stealing money from a burning house last year. According to reports, the incident began last July 15th when a home in the city's Abeno ward caught on fire. Police said that sometime while the blaze was being extinguished, one of the firefighters at the scene, 22-year-old Fuyu Nagashima, came across an envelope in the residence inside a chest of drawers on the second floor. Inside the envelope was 200,000 yen in cash, equating to approximately $1,700 US. Authorities now allege that Nagashima pocketed the money during his time in the house. It seems that Nagashima might have actually gotten away with the alleged crime, had he not decided to return to the residence a few months later. In December, he reportedly showed up asking to look around, telling the homeowner in his late 60s that he needed to conduct a safety inspection to make sure that everything was all right. Up until this point, the victim had reportedly believed that his money had simply been lost in the fire, but when the firefighter began to inspect a room on the second floor of his house where he allegedly found the money the first time, the man became suspicious and called the police. Following an investigation, Nagashima was arrested. According to police, following Nagashima's arrest, he admitted to taking the homeowner's money. He told them that he stole it in order to pay off gambling debts. At the time of this recording, authorities have yet to announce what charges Nagashima will be facing in connection with the crime. Authorities in the English county of Kent say that they recently arrested a 21-year-old man following a high-speed chase, after he was found to be in possession of a decent amount of marijuana, and his only driver's license was an imitation one that he had gotten from a theme park. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of February 28th, when officers from London's Metropolitan Police attempted to pull over a 21-year-old driver in a grey Audi in the city's southeast. The man appeared to be driving dangerously, and allegedly had failed to properly stop at least one intersection. However, when police attempted to make the traffic stop, the driver did not slow down. Instead, he accelerated and began heading towards Kent. The ensuing car chase lasted for roughly 35 miles, reaching speeds of over 70 miles per hour and involving both Metropolitan and Kent police officers as well as a police helicopter. It finally came to an end when the 21-year-old suspect ran out of gas. When officers conducted a search of the suspect's car, they quickly realized why he had been so keen to escape. In addition to a decent quantity of marijuana, the only driver's license that the man had on him was an imitation one that he had gotten from Legoland. According to reports, the man had obtained the novelty license from the theme park's driving school attraction during a visit to Legoland in 2003, when he was around 2 years old. The 21-year-old was arrested at the scene on suspicion of dangerous driving, failing to stop, possession of a Class B drug, driving with no insurance, and driving with no license. In a post to social media, Kent police released images of the alleged drugs found on the suspect at the time of his arrest, as well as his Legoland license, saying, quote, "No, the Legoland driving license was not the reason for the driver's dangerous driving. The large amount of cannabis was." At the time of this recording, the suspect has been released on bail until his next court date on the 1st of September. Authorities in New South Wales, Australia say that an unidentified juror single-handedly derailed 3 weeks of court proceedings this week after his alleged attempt to conduct a home experiment in connection with the case forced the entire trial to be aborted. According to reports, the 3-week-long trial of Sergeant Matthew Kelly was recently held at the New South Wales District Court after he was charged with manslaughter in the 2020 death of 28-year-old Jack Roberts. Roberts was killed during a police pursuit in Blue Haven on the Central Coast after Kelly allegedly hit the back of his trail bike with his car. The pursuit reportedly started because Kelly saw Roberts driving with no lights on. At the close of the trial, the 12-person jury was sent away to conduct their deliberations. However, at some point, everything went off the rails. While we know few details about what actually happened, based on the information available, problems began to arise when one of the jurors, identified only as a man, bizarrely took it upon himself to conduct a home experiment in connection with the case. Using a ruler, a book, and his body, he recreated evidence that had been presented to the jury during the trial, apparently in a misguided attempt to test its validity. This is against the law, as jurors are not allowed to conduct their own investigations. They are also not allowed to discuss evidence presented during the trial unless they are in the jury room with all other members present. The juror would have been advised of all of this well before he decided to conduct his test. Unfortunately, it didn't end there though. Once the juror had done this test, he wrote down his alleged findings on a notepad, then brought it with him to the jury room where he tried to present his new argument to the other members. All of them told him that this was against the law and refused to listen. The whole incident was brought to light when the jury's foreman wrote a note to the judge in the case, informing him about what the man had done. The foreman and the prosecution both suggested that the deliberations continue with the one juror dismissed. However, Kelly's lawyers objected, and the judge was forced to declare a mistrial. According to reports, the rogue juror's actions have now been referred to the Director of Public Prosecutions to determine if any charges should be laid. If convicted, the man could face up to 2 years in prison. This week, representatives from Japan's Tokyo Metropolitan Police announced that they had arrested a 54-year-old man from Aichi Prefecture after he reportedly sent numerous death threats to the headquarters of one of the country's most famous gaming companies. According to reports, between January 12th and February 2nd of this year, 54-year-old Akira Watanabe allegedly sent at least 12 threatening emails to Sega Sammy Holdings, the massive Japanese gaming giant based out of Tokyo's Shinagawa Ward. As the name suggests, the company owns both the gaming and entertainment company Sega, as well as the pachinko machine maker Sammy. Although most of the emails that Watanabe allegedly sent over this 3-week period involved colorful and threatening language, there was one in particular that drew the attention of police. In it, Watanabe said, quote, "I will set your offices on fire and beat your employees and their families to death." Considering that the message contained both a threat of arson and murder, authorities decided it was best to take Watanabe at his word and began to investigate the emails further. Last week, the emails were officially traced back to him, and the 54-year-old was placed under arrest. During questioning, Watanabe confessed to sending the emails. According to reports, he attempted to explain his actions by saying that he was frustrated and upset because he kept losing at Sega Online games. At the time of this recording, the 54-year-old remains in police custody. Authorities in the Thai province of Chonburi say that they are investigating an alleged stabbing incident that left one man hospitalized this week after he and another factory worker got into a knife fight over who was the harder worker. According to reports, the incident began at approximately 1 p.m. on March 27th, when police were called to a residence in the Muang Chonburi district in Nong Kangkok. When officers arrived at the scene, they found 2 men, both of whom were clearly drunk and injured. One of the men, later identified as 48-year-old Mongkorn Pongnu, had been stabbed and needed to be taken to the hospital. The second man, 39-year-old Thaksin Chalardlut, said he had acted in self-defense, but was taken into custody for questioning. Since neither man could offer a reliable version of the day's events because of their level of intoxication, police turned to a neighbor of the injured 48-year-old man, who had been the one who called police in the first place. The neighbor informed police that the 2 factory workers had been drinking all day. However, things had turned violent when they began to argue about who was the harder worker. At the time of this recording, it appears that Chalardlut remains in police custody over the stabbing incident, though no charges have yet been filed while police continue their investigation. One Thai news source we came across also jokingly added that police have so far been unable to determine who of the 2 men was the harder worker.
Are there any other international stories from this year so far that you think should have made our list? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest release. Thank you for watching.